listening to the Transformations with Jayne podcast. I'm your host, Jayne Nakata, a New Zealander living her best life in Fukushima, Japan. I'm a podcast consultant and the creator of Pod Launch with Jayne, a system that helps you create your dream podcast without all the drama and hassle, leaving you more free time to do the things you love to do. This show is for people who want to hear stories of women who are doing amazing things here in Japan and across the world. You'll find loads of inspiration for how you can live your best life wherever you are. I'm glad you're here. Let's get on with the show. Hi, Stacy. Welcome to the Transformations with Jayne podcast. It's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me, Jayne.
So this is a great day for me when I can have a listener on the podcast. So I'm very excited to have you on the show. How long have you been listening to the Transformations with Jayne podcast?
I guess it's been 4 years.
Have you been listening from the very start or near the start when it was just me in a closet with my iPhone?
Yes.
Yeah. And you've stuck it out all of these years. So
yes.
Thank you very, very much. And I know that you have some friends who also listen to the podcast. So we want to give them a bit of a shout out today before we get started. So yeah, Stacy, why don't you say hi to them?
Hello, CG. Hello, Heather.
Yeah, so CG and Heather are two of the, is it four? There's four women.
Yeah, we were a group of 4 that often got together at Starbucks in Utsunomiya at least 3 years ago, about 3 years ago. Yeah, I miss them.
And you all lived in Tochigi Prefecture or near there. And yeah, I think Heather's been on the podcast as well. And I know CG as well. And I've been asking her to come on the show too, but it hasn't worked out yet. So one day we'll get her on the show. So yeah, it's really lovely to meet you finally, Stacy. After all these years, we've been sort of chatting and mailing each other, but never got a chance to talk. But here we are today. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and how you got here?
Okay, I am Canadian. I am in Mie Prefecture now, but for most of my time in Japan, I was living in Utsunomiya, Tochigi Prefecture. I came here in 2003, January, through AEON. Yeah, it's a great company. It's really looked after me over the years. So I came in 2003 and I stayed. Here I am.
Yeah, you're still here. Yeah. So Mie is where for those of us who are geographically challenged in Japan?
It is so central. We are about a 40-minute train ride from Nagoya. And actually, Osaka and Kyoto are not that far away. I rode my bicycle to my husband's home, like his childhood home where his mom lives. And it's between Osaka and Kyoto on the border. And that's about 100 kilometers.
Oh, wow. You rode a bike there from where you live in Mie to the border between Kyoto and Osaka, 100 kilometers.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it took me all day.
It just took you one day.
Daybreak to sunset. Yes.
Oh my God, that's a long ride. Awesome.
It is. I was inspired by a guy who I met at the International Center. He was working here, a Hawaiian guy, and he said he rode his mamachari to Kyoto. And I was just like, oh, wow. If you did that, I can do it.
Were you also riding a mamachari or were you on a
I have a basket on my bicycle. I'm not a person with toe clips and curly handlebars. I have a basket, but it's not a mamachari. It has gears.
Okay.
I mean, more than 3.
Yeah. So mamachari is the sort of ubiquitous bicycle that you will see around in Japan that is kind of an upright bike. Like when you're sitting on it, you're sitting quite upright, aren't you, as opposed to hunched over. And it has a basket on the front and usually something on the back. So you can put a box on the back. Or if you live in Tokyo, you've got a child on the front and a child on the back and you take them to kindergarten that way. And I
That's why
guess,
it's called mama.
Mama's chariot.
Chariot, maybe?
I'm not sure, the Mama's chariot. I've had this discussion with someone before, but I can't remember what was the actual meaning in the end. But yeah, that's sort of your starter bike in Japan, isn't it?
Do you have one, Jayne?
I used to have one when I first came here. That was
Mhm.
my mode of transportation when I was just fresh off the plane and I had no money and I was an English teacher. I used to ride my bike. It was only like a 8-minute ride from my apartment to my school where I used to work. And so that was my mode of transport. And then I realized, wow, it's actually not very fun to ride your bike most of the year in Japan because it's either freezing cold or roasting hot, or it's raining because it's a rainy season. So it was pretty rough getting around on a bicycle here in Tohoku. But when you've got no money, you
Ah,
just do it, right? So that's what you do.
yes. So you cycled through the snow in those days.
Well, we don't have much snow here, luckily, but it would be, headwind, freezing cold, horrific headwind, and trying to get to work, or trying to ride through a typhoon to get to work, and you're wearing a suit and trying to get to work and not look like a drowned rat, to look professional. When you get to work, right?
Yes. Oh, that's such a big issue. I've ripped up so many pairs of dress pants with the
Yes.
chain, like getting oil, a little bit of oil, or just it catches a little bit and you get this little rip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. But you jog. So how would you manage that if there's headwinds and freezing cold and all kinds of adverse weather?
Yeah, jogging is not so bad. You just get the right clothes on. And I think that's the way with anything, right? You just need the right equipment. So if you're going to ride your mama cherry to work, or you're going to jog, 6 o'clock in the morning in the middle of winter, you need to dress in a certain way. And then it's not so bad. So once you figured that out, you'll be
Yeah.
fine. Not much you can do about the heat though, right? That's the thing I can't.
Oh, you hate riding bicycles.
Well, actually, where I live is on a hill. And when I say hill, I mean
Mhm.
like a mountain. So
Oh,
everywhere's down, like a long way down. So you don't really want to ride a bike around here where I live. So it's all cars. Yeah. And or unless you want to ride the bus. If we were somewhere more flat, it would be nice. Yeah.
I just fell in love with getting around by bike.
Ah,
Utsunomiya is basically flat, and where I am here is basically flat, and it's just the way to go. For like all the conveniences are around my house, the post office, the shopping center, library, everything is just as
mhm.
fast by bicycle as by car. And I'm actually moving my body, which is,
Yeah,
I
it's an extra
spend,
bonus, isn't it?
I
Yeah.
think, unfortunately, I spend about a lot of my time just sitting at a desk. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
It's
right.
my jogging. Your jogging is your jogging. And then my little exercise daily is getting out on my
Exactly.
bike. And I've just, ever since I moved to Mie, I've just been wanting to do longer and longer rides um, because it just beats sitting in the car.
I can imagine. And you see so much more, right? When you're cycling past the fields or the whatever. You must be able to really enjoy the countryside and
Exactly.
things. And the great thing about Japan, there's always a convenience store every few kilometers, right? So whatever happens, you're going to be able to pick up an onigiri or something, you know, use the bathroom, a nice clean public toilet, etc. It's not too bad in that respect either.
Yeah, it was a bit scary with that. I mean, that was the big challenge going across the Suzuka Mountains to Osaka, Kyoto. It was scary because there weren't convenience stores. And I have this issue where my phone battery, when I'm using Google Maps, my phone battery drains quickly.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's very exciting. I don't
Mm.
take a big road. I like to take side roads because I don't like traffic. But I got onto this road where
Hmm.
there were a string of huge trucks with gravel in the back. And I was wondering, does this road, is it being constructed?
Mm-mm.
I mean, does this
Mm.
road go somewhere? Are they building a dam? And what it landed up is that the road passed by a big, huge gravel works place.
Oh,
And once I
okay.
got past
Mm-hmm.
that, I had the road to myself.
Oh wow. Yeah, that could be a bit scary, yeah, when you're riding along with all those trucks, that's for sure. So it sounds like you are very interested in living a life of being sort of environmentally conscious. How do you make that happen in Japan?
It's challenging. It's challenging for me because I'm not fully literate in Japanese. So I like to know where my food comes from, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
because I can't read all the labels. But I do my best with just being environmentally conscious in the way I manage the home. I have a child, so as he grows older every year, I'm always thinking about what does he need, what does he not need. I'm also completely about getting rid of clutter. Right now, he's finished elementary school, so I have the beautiful Japanese school
Mm,
bag, the leather one, randoseru, and it's under his bed right now. And I'm just trying to think about how I can pass it on to
right.
the next home.
Have you thought about getting it remade into something like a wallet or bags? They
It,
can make, I think it's
yeah,
3 wallets they can make out of one nandoseru.
it's such a nice bag. It would be such a shame. I mean, even though it's gone through his elementary school career, it is not at all scratched up or it would be just a shame to
Mm,
I'm all about multi-night as well. Multi-night to cut up such a nice bag, and we don't really need wallets right now. So
hmm
yeah,
hmm
I'm thinking about maybe I'll take it next time I go to Canada, and maybe somebody will be absolutely delighted to have it.
Yes, I've heard that landau are quite popular overseas because they're so sort of unusual and they're quite a fashion item in some places, right? So, yeah, maybe someone would love to have it as a daily bag to use on their commute or something or whatever. You never know.
Well, I couldn't imagine an adult carrying it, but maybe a kid might use it, although they are a little bit heavy,
Yeah, they
aren't
can be
they?
quite heavy. Depends. Yeah.
Compared to what did when I was a kid, I used like a duffel bag.
Yeah, right. The very light sort of canvasy, not canvas. Yeah, a light bag, not anywhere near the weight of an average sandal. I think sometimes my daughter, she's in the fifth
Yeah.
grade, she's carrying like nearly 10 kilos of books and things, and including her landau to school in the morning. I'm like, wow. So luckily she's, nearly as tall as I am and she can kind of handle it, but there must be kids who are tiny carrying the same. And I always worry about them a little bit, but that is, yeah,
Yeah,
that is,
me too. When I 10 kilograms is a lot. I think I weighed my son's bag when he was in first grade, and it was around 5 kilograms because he carries all, I mean, I'm sure your daughter too, carrying basically all the textbooks back and forth every
yeah,
day.
they've stopped that a little bit now. I think that's improved in the last couple of years. So that's good. But yeah, there's still a lot of stuff that goes back and forward every day um, in their bags.
Thank God the textbooks are paperbacks and they're divided into UA and the first term and the second term.
Yes, that's right. Joe.
Joe is
What is it?
Joe.
Is
Yeah,
it is it
sorry.
where is it Joe? Joe. Joe and Gare. I always say Uensta. My husband's like, no, it's Joe and Gare. I'm like, okay. Same.
Joe is the first one.
Yeah, I think so. But I always get confused. I'm like, is it the first one or is it the second one? But I think it's the first one. Someone will tell us. Yeah. I always know and then I forget and then I have to be told again because I can't keep it in my brain. But yeah, I thought my son had brought home his ge or the second part of the textbooks the other day. And so I thought, oh, he doesn't need these at school in his backpack every morning. So I took them out of his backpack and put them on the shelf. He went to school and had no school books. And he's like, Mommy, where are all my school books? And I'm like,
Oh,
oh, those were the ones you're supposed to keep in your backpack, not the ones to put on the shelf for later. Poor kid had no textbooks because his mummy got confused about which textbooks it should have been at school, which not. That was
oh,
just last week. Yeah.
yes. And what did you do with last year's textbooks?
They get recycled very quickly.
Right, right. So you bundle them up. I actually went through his textbooks this year and was just looking at what he was learning, like the life skills. There is a picture of a really messy room a kid's room, and there's a picture of a tidy room. And so they're actually learning how to organize and tidy their desk in their room and fold their clothes, stuff I never learned in Canada. It's really interesting how different the education system is.
Was that from the sixth grade textbook?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping my daughter will get that information next year. I'm sure she'll put it.
I don't really think it made a big difference yet. Yes.
Interesting. Yeah. The life skills go beyond just the cooking class or the sewing class or the, the sort of woodwork classes or things that they do at school, as well as how to fold your clothes. I remember my son going to kindergarten and coming home one day and madly folding all these clothes. And I'm like, where did you learn to do that? And he said, at kindergarten. I was like, oh, excellent. Because like if I try to teach him, he's like, I don't want to do that. That's boring. But he learned it at school and he came home and practiced, and he's quite a good laundry folder. Thank you, Japanese kindergarten.
Oh, folding is very important to Japanese culture, isn't it? So I tend to like to hang everything because it's more efficient. I just hang it all out on the balcony to dry. And then I just, from the hanger, just hang it in the closet.
Right. Yes. That is very efficient. Yeah.
but folding is important to Japanese.
Yeah.
I followed, Marie Kondo, the magic of clean. So she says to fold all your socks and not to make them into bunnies. Not inside out.
Yes, I can't not make them into bunnies, but yes, apparently it's not good for the socks, right?
Apparently not. So, she helped me with a little bit of more folding than I used to do. I did a lot of what she suggested because I like to reduce clutter. And the problem with her is she doesn't really tell you how to rehome things. It's a bit irresponsible in like, okay, if it doesn't spark joy, throw it out. So I can just imagine this huge dumpster and all this landfill. I think a lot of things could be reused that one home doesn't need, but another home could use. So I'm always thinking about that. With school term ending, as I said, I was going through all of the stuff my son brought home. Boy, that was at least 10 kilograms on the last day, right? And all that, I was going through all the one-sided paper, and I have it here by my desk now. I've got about a pile of 20 centimeters of paper that's all one-sided.
Yeah.
It's going to take me forever to use it all up.
Yeah. All of the backs of those pieces of paper that they could have emailed us. But anyway, yes. Good old Japanese school and their obsession with printing everything out and sending it home. I get twice. So I've got 2 kids, right? So one for each kid. I get the double.
I can't imagine. Yes. Upstairs, there's 4 girls from junior high school down to 3 years old. Just imagine all the things that the mother has to prepare for school and all the stuff that comes back at the end of term.
So how did you end up deciding to come to Japan in the first place, Stacy? What brought you here?
Well, that's a really long story. I didn't want to go to Japan particularly, but I went to Korea first and I worked there for a year. And it was really exciting to live in a foreign country. And I went back to Canada and I did a college program in publishing. And I was on the computer all day and I just felt like, is this for me? I like working with people. I never thought I'd like to be a teacher because I'm quite shy, but actually I enjoy it. And when I was in Vancouver studying publishing, I was tutoring on the side. And when I went to look for a job, I had some ideas of working in travel, like making travel brochures or editing English in Asian publications that had many typos in those days. And I was just thinking what to do. And there weren't that many jobs in publishing at the time. But when you opened the newspaper, there was lots of jobs for people with a Bachelor of Arts degree to work in Asia. And I was looking at that, and I was looking at, I think they're just a job with AEON popped up. And I thought, well, why not? I'll just try and see if this works out. Maybe I can go to Japan. It's, life is an adventure when you live abroad, learning stuff every day. So that was just, it was just so easy that I just felt like I sailed through that, job application process. Whereas when I was applying for work in publishing, applying to magazines and such, it just felt like it was hitting a brick wall. The closest I could get to a career there was if I was to do an internship for like 6 weeks. But Vancouver is a very expensive city to live in. I don't have family there. And I just thought, gosh, I could go back to Asia and have this, this adventurous lifestyle, or I could go back to sitting at the desk in front of the computer all day, trying to be absolutely perfect with no typos and no mistakes, and learning software, which actually feels a bit stressful for me. And I almost didn't think about it. It was just like it flowed. And here I am.
Here you are. Yeah. Interesting that it was
still working for AEON, actually.
Yeah, right. It's so interesting that it just seemed so easy to come to Japan, right?
Yeah.
That like the path kind of opened, and then it was just a matter of walking along it. It wasn't a struggle, or you didn't have to bash your way through any walls to get here. Like potentially some people have had to do recently with borders closed and all of that. But yeah, just kind of this happened, and here you are. You find yourself in Japan, which is, it's not an easy country to get used to living in. It takes a lot of time and effort and all of that. But yeah, the process of coming here was super easy for you.
It was. And I think that partly is because I had a year in Korea before teaching English.
That would help. Yeah. Not your first rodeo living overseas.
And I looked into other countries as well. Like I wasn't particularly drawn to just Japan, but the exchange rate was good and still is. And it's a safe country. A lot of my university peers were going to Japan. I looked at Thailand and I looked at some place in South America. I don't even remember. So it was kind of like, oh, where can I go? I guess I was looking for opportunities, and then, just this opportunity came up and it worked out.
And so what would you say, what are some of the things that make you want to stay in Japan?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to stay in Japan, actually. Of course, the food is absolutely delicious. But as a housewife, my standards apparently are not quite up to par, according to my husband and son. So I do love Japanese food, but I don't love cooking it. And I love the fact that we don't have to tip here in restaurants,
right?
And we can eat out often. I love my work. I love coaching people with English one-to-one, and I mostly do that online. With AEON. So that I love. And the reason I love it is because I'm not doing it 8 hours a day. I'm doing it 1 or 2 hours a day. And for that, I feel privileged to do that work. I love it. Thank you, Jayne, for reminding me of that work when I moved here.
Yeah, that's a fun fact, isn't it?
Yeah. So I moved here across Japan, and I was looking for new work because I had really nice work back in Utsunomiya. And I was just looking, what can I do? What can I do? And I was applying to all kinds of local schools, but most schools will work in the evening for kids or for adults. And as a housewife, making dinner and also working in the evening is just not going to work. And then I remember you saying, oh, I work at home on the internet. And I sent you an email and said, what on earth do you do, Jayne?
Yeah.
And you're like, I work for AEON. And I'm like, what? I did that before. I was an online teacher for the year I was pregnant. Not quite year I was pregnant. I wasn't pregnant for a full year, but thank you. I love it. So that keeps me.
Yeah, that's so great to hear that you're still working with them and that you really enjoy it. there's so many really lovely students come to you through that system that they have. That's really great. Yeah.
I like it because the students I teach want to be there. And
Mm.
most of them, 95% of them, are really keen and interested in learning. So it's just my pleasure.
Yeah, that's a great thing about eikaiwa, and is that the students are really lovely, and that's something I really like as well. It's my daughter was saying, "Are you still an English teacher?" I'm like, "Yes, when I want to people I want to teach," and that's because I really enjoy teaching the particular students. They're so lovely to spend time with, and yeah, and help them with their English while we're doing it. Yeah, that's great. So when you were moving from Utsunomiya to Mie, I think you also started is it Shindin Yoku?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us a
Yes.
little bit about Shindin Yoku.
Okay. Well, going back to the things I like about Japan, food, my work, and adventure. So part of that is outdoor adventure. I love nature.
Mm,
And I was a little bit wary about moving to Yokkaichi City here. My husband's from Kyoto, and when we drive through this area, there are smokestacks and big industry along the highway between like Tokyo and Kyoto. When you get near
yeah.
Nagoya, I guess your
Yeah.
husband's from Kansai as well. You've taken that highway.
It's quite shocking just how like the factories and just the industry that you can see from the
It,
highway.
yeah, the area where there's Nagashima Spa Line with the giant roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember
Yeah.
seeing that as you're
Yeah.
driving through? So I knew that Yokkaichi was more of that kind of scenery. And although I was delighted that my husband would be closer to his mother and his beloved Kansai,
Mm.
I was a little bit feeling like I was facing my nightmare. Before I came to Japan, I actually had a dream of coming to a place with smokestacks and no greenery. And I'm feeling very scared about that.
Mm.
But I accepted this job in Tochigi because they showed me pictures of Nikko, and I was like, oh, well, that's just fine. That'll work for me. And so,
Tochigi's beautiful, right? There's lots
yeah,
of lovely
yeah.
mountains and things. Yes.
But I was living, for me, I'm from the mountains in Canada. I'm from a very small town. And for me, Utsunomiya was a huge city, and I was pretty much in the middle of it
Mm.
for, uh, for most of my life in Japan. Uh, so I felt like I was in a big city. But as you say, you can get out of the city. And same here in Yokkaichi. Although I look out the window and I see smokestacks and buildings and not very many trees, I can get out of the town. Like if I could just ride my bicycle 5 minutes from here, I'll be along a riverside with trees.
Mm-hmm.
And so this thing that there's this forest therapy, I was like, wow, what is that? That sounds like this is
Mm-hmm.
originated in Japan. I'm here in Japan. It's all about nature and connecting people with nature. I've got to find out about this. And so I think it was a coping mechanism for the move.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
I did a training in Canada just after we moved here. And it has really helped me get to know this area. I have been exploring all the parks that I can get to by bicycle and even by car. And I've really got to know some beautiful places and really felt more connected, like learning about the the wildlife here. Part of the training is keeping a journal and mapping, like drawing different parks and where you could routes that you can do and learning about the local wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
I've just loved it. But Corona hit just around the about a year after we moved here, maybe not even a year. So it was a little hard to find participants to walk with me.
Sure. Yeah.
But I've done some walks and I've got one coming up, my first one ever that's not in my neighborhood. I've been asked to do one in Kyoto.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going May 1st, which is going to be interesting because a forest therapy walk is quiet practice where you give group participants an invitation to do something sensory and orienting to pleasure, for example, peel off your socks and your feet on some moss.
Mm.
But people usually do this without talking. They have a 10 minutes, 15 minutes alone and have it. If they take the invitation, they don't have to. You can kind of whatever people are comfortable with. You don't want to push their comfort zones too much. But with a lot of people looking at you as you take off your socks and bury your feet in moss, I mean, in city parks, it can feel uncomfortable. I have to think deeply about what invitations I make. And Kyoto is very busy during Golden Week. So there will be many people on trails and probably benches are going to be occupied. So I feel a very big challenge coming up soon with how to make a relaxing, therapeutic walk.
Right. And so, for example, if someone decides to take up your sort of offer to attempt this, so they take off in this case, they take off their socks and they stand on the moss, they are doing this in silence and just focusing on the experience of standing with their bare feet in the moss.
Yes. And then after such an invitation, like if we were just standing there, maybe I wouldn't make that very long.
Sure.
Maybe only 5 minutes or something. Then we come back together as a group and each of us speaks from our heart. What are we feeling? What are we noticing? It's called counsel. So we pass around a leaf or something, and the person who holds the leaf will speak, honestly about their feeling. And everyone is supposed to, really listen with their hearts. No interruptions or conversation. It's a practice. And this is actually developed in America, the US. Japanese Shinrin Yoku is quite different. It's just a walk in the woods,
right?
Mostly. And it is with the guide maybe talking about different kinds of plants and maybe doing some breathing exercises or yoga. But the American version is a little different. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that it doesn't sound very Japanese. It sounds more American.
Yeah. So, yeah.
What kind of things do people sort of say? Like, what kind of realizations do they have? Like by standing in moss and...
Oh, I haven't done the standing in moss. That's what I'm wanting to do. I was just thinking about that, about grounding recently, about taking off your shoes and socks and grounding as a nice invitation to do in the future. In the changing of the seasons, like maybe when the plum blossoms are coming up or when there's autumn leaves, people think about how that is in their lives, like how there's renewal. It's reflective of looking at the trees and they don't all blossom at the same time. And somebody might say, well, I'm not blossoming at the same time as everyone else. I want to have a baby, but I haven't been able to conceive. And maybe my time is just not now. That kind of realization. Or just for me, I look up and I'll see that some branches are dead and broken off. And that lets in the light for new growth. Like you could just reflect about your own life.
And I guess participants get the message they needed to hear or the thing they needed to see, right? Like whatever that might be, wherever they are in their life at that time when they go on the walk.
Yeah, and there may be no message. It just depends on the group and the mood. It may be just that you feel, mostly we always feel relaxed and in another zone because we've really slowed down and we're just focusing on pleasure and beauty. And then at the very end, we'll have tea we'll sit down and it try to put out a nice tablecloth on the ground and use something from the forest or from the walk to make tea, like for example, plum blossom tea. And then we chat, and it just
Mm.
feels like an escape from the daily grind and getting away from our digital devices and our screens and realizing that there is another world out there that is fantastic, and it is therapeutic in that it's good for your cortisol levels.
Yeah.
And there's like natural oils in trees called phytoncides. And yeah, there's your immune system can benefit. I'm not with a science background, but apparently there's a lot of scientific benefits that have been
Mhm.
proven.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. If I was in Kyoto on the 1st of May, I would love to come along on this walk and put my feet in the moss and enjoy that. It sounds like a really great experience. What are some of the other invitations that you give? Like just an example. So we've talked about the moss one, but that, yeah.
Yeah, the first invitation is slowing to the moment. So that's always the same. We walk as slowly as possible
Hmm.
through, basically, I'm the leader and people will follow me, but I suggest that each person lags behind until the person ahead is quite a distance so that you feel like you're on your own.
Right.
And just anything that looks interesting, just allow your curiosity to take over and pause and, you know, just really, really slow down. So that maybe we walk a very short distance, really, for just 10 minutes in a very, very slow rate. And it of course, slows your heartbeat and
Mm.
your breathing and your steps and your heartbeat kind of all find their own
Yeah.
pace that
Yeah.
is so relaxing.
And so you naturally relax from the slower breathing pace and the slower walking, and your brain probably slows down as well from the frenetic, oh, I've got to do this, got to do that, or I forgot to do that kind of thought pattern before you arrive at the walk. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all are spending a lot of time connected to the internet looking at screens, especially since COVID
Mm.
came along. And I just looked at my day and I'm awake 16 hours a day, but I'm not doing housework all day long and I'm not teaching all day long. I'm probably sitting at my computer for most of the day.
Right.
And even when I go out by myself for a walk to scope out a trail or get ready for a forest therapy walk, I have my phone in my pocket and I'm looking at plants and I'm taking photos. So it seems like we have, all of us, created a dependency on the internet, and it's really hard to break that.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
But during a forest walk, I try to get people to just feel things and notice things with their own senses, not through
Mm.
a device, not through a camera. My son just graduated from school, and I noticed every school event, like sports day, every parent that I notice is holding their phone in front of their face and watching the whole proceedings through their phone, not actually firsthand.
Yeah. So
And
true.
how often do they watch that movie again? I don't know.
Mm.
Do you?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I noticed that as well. And I think it was my son's entrance ceremony last year. I just refused to take any photos. I let my husband do that, and he wants to be the photographer, and I just watched and enjoyed it. So yeah, I agree with you there. It's great to notice, right? And I don't think anyone notices actually the extent to which we have become dependent on the internet, unless something happens and, for example, there's a power cut and your internet's turned off, and then you're suddenly without it. You don't notice how much you rely on it until it's not there. So yeah, that's a really great sort of pocket to carve out of time going on your Shinrin Yoku walks and being in that mode in nature away from technology. I also notice, for my kids, when we've had a day out in nature, either we've been to the beach or, in our local big park that we have down the street, that their mood is very different. They're very, they're energized, but they're calm, as opposed to constantly winding each other up and creating dramas about nothing, etc. It's a very different mood when we've all been out in the fresh air, in the nature and stuff. So yes.
I never regret going out, but it's so hard for me to get my butt out the door.
Oh, I agree. Definitely. Even though you never regret it once you do go and do it. That's for sure. How do you get yourself out the door then? If you
Well, that's the thing. I need accountability. So if I have a walk I need to
Mm.
plan,
Mm-hmm.
then I know, okay, I need to scope the trails. I need to see where we're going to pause and where we're going to have tea and what plants I can use for the tea. So that gets me out. And so that's been a real lifesaver for me. And just for that first year here in Yokkaichi, I was completing the practicum
Mm-hmm.
for this program, the journaling and stuff. So that got me out a lot.
Mm.
Now, well, today's rainy and um, I'm not out as much as I was before. If I had a regular walk once a month
Mm.
with participants, I think that would be great. And that is a future vision.
Yeah, I would love to see you doing that, because I can imagine you would have people coming from all around Japan to join you on these walks.
But as I mentioned before, my Japanese skills are not so wonderful. So I have tried to guide using as much Japanese as I can, but
Mm-hmm.
it's tough.
Yeah, I think there's also a market for doing it in English though as well, right? Like, I know you're not allowed to
Right.
poach your English students, but there are a lot of Japanese people who would love to do something in English and come along with you, and your English teaching
Yes.
ability will definitely complement. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the thing. How do I reach out to people who are interested in my city? I went around to all the community centers looking for English groups to give a
Mm,
poster to when I
mm,
first came. And then I tried Meetup. And
yeah.
finally, what I landed up doing was just people I met individually. I would sometimes mention,
Hmm.
oh, I want to guide a walk. Would you be interested? And then trying to network that way. And I have a line group of about 20 people, but actually when I put
Hmm.
on that I have a walk I'm doing, I've my last walk was just my local friend. I have one friend
Hmm.
and he came.
Hmm. I see. Okay. So you had someone show up. Well, that's good.
Yeah, I guess one is better than
Yeah.
none, but yeah.
Interesting. Have you tried your local international association?
Yeah, I put a poster up there. Nothing came of it.
Do they have a like a magazine that they put out once a month that you could be in?
Uh Yeah, I went. Yeah, there's two international associations where I take Japanese, and I gave them both a poster to put up.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
because of Corona, they've basically gone online.
yeah. That's right. But I think slowly it's coming back, right? Like um, there was this. I noticed the same thing here in our city. Everything went online, everything got cancelled, and now things start to be coming back a little bit. Starting to plan more group in-person activities that are outdoors. So it could be the perfect time to approach them again and say, what do you think about doing this, or offering this?
Yes.
So yeah, it could be another, perfect timing thing.
So one community closest to me, the kind of community center Japanese class place, is in a Brazilian community.
Okay.
So I wonder how to reach out to those people
Mm-hmm.
in that community. My
Right.
poster is in English.
Yeah, maybe someone could help you with making it into Portuguese or something that would make it more accessible to members in the community.
But if their Japanese is negligible and they speak Portuguese, how do I guide
I
them?
think you will both be using your negligible Japanese, but the right people will
Yes.
get the meaning of what you're saying from, you know, from all of the other ways that we can communicate with people that don't use words, whether it's the your vibration or your gestures, or they get out their phone if they have to, and they check a word in their Google dictionary or whatever. Something I think it would work.
Yeah, yeah. It when you do the practice, it's supposed to turn off your
Right.
rational mind. You shouldn't be like talking about what species of flower this is, or how do you say this in another language? Because I actually, had participants picking up a pine cone and saying, well, how do you say this in English?
Right.
So it's supposed to be more, I don't know, your artistic side of your brain or the nonverbal side of your brain.
Well, maybe that's something you can work towards, but perhaps the first time wouldn't be a perfect one. Do you know what I mean? Like people are, it's not going to be your perfect Shindin Yoku or
Yeah,
it's going to
exactly.
be.
Exactly. The standards of my training are so high. and I have to just
You have to meet
do
people where
my
they
best.
are, right? And
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And it's like teaching English. I remember when I started, I spent 2 or 3 hours to prepare sometimes for 1 hour
right.
class. And everything was so difficult. But now it takes absolutely no effort at all.
And that's through your practice, right? You practiced and practiced, and now
Right, right.
it's
So
no problem. I get you there because I was like that too when I first arrived. I was like, oh, I have to plan every second of this lesson, and what if this happens? And now I'm just show up, and I'm like, what am I teaching? This excellent. Here we go, and yeah,
yeah, I'd love
it
for
just
this
works, right?
Shinrin
Yeah,
Yoku practice to become like that for me, like second nature. And I just need to gain my confidence and just keep going, like keep going. Even if there's only one participant, it's good for me.
exactly. You'll get what you need, which is the one participant. That time was what you needed potentially. And if you had 20 people show up, would that have been great? Would that have been a
No,
success? Absolutely not, right?
that's
That
a
wasn't
really good point.
like that was probably the perfect number for that day, and perhaps if you decide to do this, with people who don't speak the same language as you, perhaps, maybe it's this Portuguese community or not. I think if you show up and without a plan, it might work better. If you can see, oh, they just need to do this, or oh, I can see this is what they need today, or perhaps, this route is a bit long, we'll make it a bit shorter or whatever. So if you show up with your perfect plan, you won't give them what they need.
Yeah.
And if you don't meet them where they are, you won't be able to give them what they need. So, but having all that behind you to draw from is the point, right? All the training and all of that practice you've done is going to serve you well to help those people when they get to the forest. Because I imagine for some people, for you and me, being in the forest is normal. Kind of, we're used to it. But if you never normally do that and it's your first time, wouldn't it be great to go with someone who could guide you and show you how to enjoy it? That's a huge gift that you can give to people who potentially don't do that on their daily basis because they don't know where to go or how to enjoy it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for saying so. And I like how you said, like, it's so true with everything in life. Like, for example, planning a trip, the preparation. Okay, it's good to prepare for things but you also need to balance that with spontaneity and adjusting to what's going on, going with the flow. So there's like this very careful balance.
Exactly. Yeah, you could miss the best opportunity or the best encounter because you're sticking to your plan, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But without the plan, you might not end up in the right place to have anywhere to stay for the night or something, important, like food for lunch or whatever it is. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. This goes to my word of the year,
Oh,
which
yes.
thank you, Jayne, have inspired me to make a word of the year. So my word of the year is balance.
Okay.
So yeah, the balance between preparation and going with the flow at the moment. That's a very careful balance. And then
Oh,
balance with my how much work I do, and I thought maybe I'd like to start working full time from this April. So I was doing
mhm.
more and more work. I got some work as an ALT, assistant language teacher relief. And I was going around to elementary schools, and then I was working at a culture school, and I was doing a writing project where I was cycling and then posting on a blog. I was doing all this work, and I felt like, my balance. Oh my gosh. I was microwaving madly for dinner, and my housework was getting faster and faster as I was trying to fit it all in. So balance is really, really tough to adjust, but I think all of us need to always be working on creating the right balance.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And what does that look like for you, for me? What's your idea of balance? That's really great. Well, I'm so excited to hear that inspired you.
Yes.
To think about your own one and how that, and to notice, oh, I'm getting a bit out of balance here. Maybe I need to rebalance some of the things, etc., that might keep you on a good path during the year. That's really great.
What's your word this year?
My word for this year was expansion.
Nice.
Yeah, not just the waistline, just in general. No.
How's that working out for you?
Yeah, so expansion for me means to just create expansion for others. So what I do with my podcasting creates expansion in the world, right? So maybe on the face of it, it looks like I create episodes and I do marketing and all these sorts of things. But the effect is it creates expansion for my clients, so they get more time to do other work that they want to do. Or for the people who listen to the podcast, they learn something new, changes their life, they go on a new trajectory. I'm sure you've heard an episode that has, pointed you in a different direction. And, later you found out you're in a whole different place thanks to listening to a podcast. So that's what expansion means for me. And also, I just really noticed in the last 2 years, especially that due to COVID, things have felt quite constricted with being stuck at home, or you're not feeling like you could go anywhere, or not being able to go anywhere, not being able to travel. And so expansion for me is kind of reminding myself that it's okay to go out, not staying at home all the time, making dates to go and meet friends and things again, because to get back in that habit of being out in the world. Whereas I noticed I'd really got in the habit of being in my home. I like being at home. I'm a bit of a homebody, but I need that, the Japanese word merihari, that the difference, of being out, so that when you come home, it feels great to be at home. Or when you're at home a lot, it feels great to go out, right? So having that, enjoying the feeling of going out, enjoying the feeling of being at home again, which I kind of lost during the last 2 years.
That's my balance. Yeah. Yes. I would just go crazy to be a housewife only and just to be on in the house all day. But I really don't. I've worked full time before, and I know that that's not the life for me either. That there's no time for yoga class, or there's no time to ride my bike along the river, or to take a Japanese class.
There you go. Yeah. So we're kind of working on similar things, but in a different way. Yeah, as well. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Stacy, and telling us about your part of Japan, about your forest walks. And I really hope that some of our listeners will reach out to you and say, "Hey, tell me about your next walk. I'm in the neighborhood. I'd love to join you." Where can they get hold of you if they'd like to hear more about Shinrin-yoku, or if you've got any walks coming up?
You can put a link to me for LinkedIn, and that would be a great way for them to reach out to me. And I just want to say one more thing about what I want to do, and maybe somebody's listening and wants to do the same thing or can direct me. I really want to become politically active in about environmental issues, especially just Japan? Where I live. Right. Yeah. Yes. And again, language is a bit of a barrier, but especially just like protecting rivers. And I cycle along riverside trails, and I notice so much trash, and I just want to do something about it.
Right.
So Anybody else who wants to collaborate or tell me about how to get involved in environmental issues, I'm always looking to connect with like-minded people.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So if you're not on LinkedIn or you're having trouble getting in contact with Stacy, just drop me a message on Instagram or Facebook and I'll put you in touch with Stacy. Yeah. So I don't want to have your email floating around on the on the internet, but I can direct people to you as well. So that'd be fine. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been great talking to you and getting to know you more.
Thank you, Jayne. I have enjoyed this and yay. I will keep listening and keep getting inspired by your podcasts and feeling expansion coming through the internet
Yeah,
from
that's
you and
great.
your work. Thank you.